Good afternoon, Bhargav. It's Tuesday, the 27th of June. Here's the heads up brief for today. For the Southeast Asia production, we covered 20 issues. In North Asia, we covered 12. And for Australasia and the Pacific Islands, we covered 3. In South Asia, we covered 18 issues, plus the major issues in Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Hello there. Thank you. Can we move on to the major issues today?
Great. In Papua New Guinea, authorities foiled a kidnapping attempt in Hela province. They managed to rescue 7 teachers belonging to a primary school and their families from a kidnap for ransom incident in the Bosavi region. Now, this is the same region, same area where 17 schoolgirls were kidnapped recently and they were freed after a ransom was paid. It's also the same area where earlier this year, an Australian citizen who was part of an anthropological team was kidnapped and later freed for ransom.
All right. So APAC Assistance has produced quite a few reports. In fact, we did a deeper assessment report on the kidnapping, and we did predict that more such attempts will be made. Uday, can you outline those elements, and do you expect more of these attacks to continue as well?
Yeah, definitely expect more of this to continue. There's a few factors for that. One is the fact that the government is paying ransom in some cases, which does motivate more criminality. And second, and another major factor is the lack of capacity by security forces. There are attempts being made to amend the Criminal Code Act to give security forces more powers, but at the end of the day, they're under-resourced, and the politicians of this country are misdirecting them or not using them optimally.
All right. So then let's keep a close eye on these developments and maybe look to issue another assessment as you see fit.
Yeah, we'll do that. In Myanmar, 2 border guard force units in Kaya State entered into an alliance with pro-democracy militias. Kaya State is in the eastern part of the country, and the border guard force are normally they were created by the military to maintain security in the border region. So most of them are aligned with the military. So it's interesting to note that there are defections from these border guard forces.
All right.
And in Thailand, the 8-party coalition led by the Move Forward Party will conduct a meeting on the 29th of June. This is to discuss the state of their coalition and the government formation and resolve the House Speaker issue in which politicians between the Move Forward Party and the Pheu Thai Party have been trading barbs as both parties want to hold that position.
All right. Thank you.
Moving over to South Asia, authorities in Pakistan yesterday recovered a large weapons cache during raids in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They recovered 5 suicide vests, remote control bombs, hand grenades, 30 kilograms of explosive material, and small arms in the raids. Authorities are concerned that terrorists are planning to conduct attacks during the Eid al-Adha Islamic observance, which is starting today or tomorrow in most places.
All right. So the amount of recovery is quite literally it's pretense. It's just peanuts for some of the groups who are operating in the region. The region is known to be among the biggest underground weapons market in the world. So such recovery means very little for the nefarious groups active there. And they are right to underline or expect attacks during the holidays this week. So let's focus on see if we can issue an alert or an advisory based on your assessment, please.
Yeah, and we'll keep an eye out on any terrorist movements in Pakistan also.
Yes.
Regarding South Asia, there's weather warnings in both India and Pakistan as the monsoons have struck. Several people have died in both countries. Thousands of people have been evacuated, and there's been infrastructure damage across the countries.
All right, thank you.
And lastly, regarding the recent tensions between Afghanistan and Iran over the water sharing issue. Iran's interior minister proposed the formation of a joint committee to tackle the water rights situation.
Yes, so both countries are very cautious in engaging with each other. If conventional wisdom uh, were to come to the fore, both countries were supposed to be allies, given that they both antagonize the West, more specifically the Americans. But unfortunately, because Taliban is a hardline Sunni organization and Iran is a hardline Shia, led by a Shia cleric or clergy, they don't really seem to they don't really see eye to eye on any of the issues. So hopefully such developments um, do lead to some degree of peace in the region. Otherwise, more of the border clashes can be expected.
Right. Yeah. And lastly, in Europe, a follow-up to what happened in Russia over the weekend, the leader of the Wagner Group said that the revolt was not intended to overthrow the Russian government, rather that it was an act of protest against the ineffectiveness of the Russian military in its war against Ukraine.
All
President
right.
Putin also announced that Wagner Group mercenaries who will not sign contracts to operate under the Russian armed forces should either go home or relocate to Belarus.
Yes, so it seems like both of them are in over their head. Putin, especially, was trying to use Wagner as a non-state private entity, as a as an entity he can use in Ukraine with plausible deniability. However, he seems to not learn from Western experience with private military contractors, like we saw with Blackwater, and how they were regulated with the multiple judicial committees and inquiries. And because he did not learn, he gave too much power with a PMC who was not accountable to the legislature or the cabinet, and they openly refused to submit to the hierarchy or the mandate of the Ministry of Defense, and that seems to be the bone of contention here as well. If they refuse, they basically go home. So we'll have to see how this unfolds. Hopefully, the Russian military and the Ministry of Defense gets hold of the Wagner Group in entirety. Otherwise, they're looking at more challenges down the road.
Great. That's a heads up brief for today, Bhargav. Anything else from you?
Nothing else from my end of that. Thank you.